Order! Order! You are an incorrigible delinquent at times. Behave yourself, man!
It's a little over 6 months since Sadiq Khan won the London mayoralty. Given his background, growing up on an estate in South London, some have seen it as a story of ambition and aspiration of which the capital can be proud. Abroad too, it's generated plenty of interest. He is, of course, the first Muslim mayor of a major Western city. And well into his stride now, he's with us today. Welcome.
Good to be here.
How do you think it's going or been going?
Well, it's tough, but I'm loving it. I mean, being the mayor of the city that you were born and raised in is a privilege and an honour. And each day I meet some of the Londoners who help make our city the greatest city in the world, from police officers to the fire service, the ambulance service, to actors, to journalists and to others who work their socks off to make London the global city that we are.
Have you got highlights and lowlights yet?
Oh, lots of highlights. I mean, you know, meeting the police officers who keep us safe every day, or doctors or ambulance service has been a joy. The staff at City Hall work their socks off. That's been great. But also things like, you know, going on the first night tube was a privilege. I was on the Victoria line from Brixton, was good fun. Getting on the Hopper Fair was good fun. Visiting building sites where we're starting to build now the genuinely affordable homes.
What about the downside
that we
of the
need.
job?
Safety, security. That's what keeps me awake at night time. The Russell Square incident, where I was on holiday, I came back straight away because obviously I was so worried it could have been a terrorist incident. Croydon tram incident was the worst day since I've been the mayor. My thoughts and prayers still are with the 7 families who lost their loved ones. We've got to make sure we learn the lessons. You know, but look, as tough as the job is, I'm loving it.
You've certainly been busy. Let's get on to the autumn statement first. What was in it for London? What wasn't? And what did it all say about Theresa May's attitude to the capital? Here's Tanjil Rashid.
Theresa May says her government is all about those who've been left behind. She cares about the jams, people who are just about managing, many of whom live outside our prosperous capital and resent the metropolitan elite.
We see division and unfairness all around, between a more prosperous older generation and a struggling younger generation, between the wealth of London and the rest of the country.
So who stood to gain from this week's autumn statement?
The English regions, north of England, the Midlands, the Northern Ireland Executive, Welsh Government, Scottish Government. For too long, economic growth in our country has been too concentrated in London and the South East.
But the Chancellor still had some goodies for the capital, especially on the one issue where London's only just about managing too.
London will receive £3.15 billion as its share of national affordable housing funding to deliver a commitment of over 90,000 affordable homes, and also that we are devolving to London the adult education budget and giving London greater control over the delivery of employment support services for the hardest to help.
There was a mixed reception from London councils.
There's recognition in the autumn statement that London faces a housing crisis and money to address that. But London also faces, along with the rest of the country, a social care crisis. And there wasn't a single mention of social care in today's autumn statement. And that concerns me greatly. And it concerns me greatly as we go into the winter period.
Conspicuously absent from the autumn statement were a number of items from City Hall's wish list.
Sadiq Khan will be disappointed he hasn't got any suburban rail devolution, and indeed the City Hall's already said that. Could have been a far more radical version of devolution offered to London by Philip Hammond, or there could have been significantly more about the possibility of going ahead with Crossrail too.
So what did the Minister for London have to say to the Mayor of London on these sticking points?
In relation to rail, I'm an MP for Croydon. I know exactly what it's like on the southern route at the moment. And my colleague, Chris Grayling, who's the Secretary of State for Transport, I think his view is that he absolutely wants to work with the Mayor and TfL to improve services. What he's nervous about is a complete reorganisation, because that could make things worse.
A standout win for the Mayor on housing, but what can he do to persuade the government to grant London more power over its own affairs?
Yeah, what can you do? I mean, overall, disappointed that this didn't seem very London-centred, this budget?
Well, it depends whether you're a glass half full or a glass half empty person. I think we've seen the first steps towards greater devolution to London. I'm really pleased about the record amounts we've been given for affordable housing. skills devolution for those above 19, long-term unemployed. I'm disappointed that the government's not matched my fares freeze. So TfL fares freeze that I've promised, not been matched by the government with private companies. Disappointed. We've not got devolution of the suburban lines, southern, southeastern, southwestern, cancellations, delays, huge fares will carry on for the foreseeable future.
And what do you think about the signals there? Because the signals appear to be there that you may not get it even. Doesn't want to see a reorganisation, more concerned about like the operators of the track and the people responsible for the track working better together.
My job is to try and address the concerns that the new Transport Secretary has. There's a new Prime Minister, a new Chancellor, a new government. And I don't think it's unreasonable for them to ask these tough questions for me to answer. The good news is, across London, MPs from all parties, councils from all sides, businesses and Team London are united in that actually we can do a far better job in bringing in revenues for the government.
He doesn't see this as like that yet, Chris Grayling.
And the challenge for me is to persuade him that it's in the interests of commuters, not just inside London, but outside London, for us to have more devolution. Let me give you tell you why it's so important. If you look at Crossrail 1, they've accepted the case that people outside of London will benefit from us being in charge of Crossrail 1. We've already seen with London Overground what a difference we can make running a train service for people inside London and outside of London. And we've seen recently the Liverpool Street to Shenfield line being given over to us. And what I've got to do is to persuade Chris Grayling that actually I can reassure him that if we take over Southern, South East and South Western, we can do a good job for Londoners, but also those outside London as well.
Do you get on OK with Chris Grayling, the Transport Secretary?
Well, we've obviously had differences across the chamber, as you'd expect from a Conservative and a Labour politician. But look, I get on with most politicians of all sides.
What about him? Because you've seen virtually everyone else. He seems to be the only person you haven't met.
I'm seeing Chris next week. It's really important that I, for London, bat for us and go and meet the Prime Minister, the Chancellor, members of the government, whether it's Liam Fox, David Davis, Boris Johnson, Philip Hammond, the Prime Minister, and that includes.
You'd expect or hope to get something out of this meeting firm that you could come and tell Londoners about?
Well, I hope so. I mean, if you remember when there was a new government formed in August, the big concern we had was actually that the door would be shut to any further devolution to London. The good news is the door is still ajar. We've had the first steps towards a major devolution package to London. And what hasn't happened is the government sacrificing London's prosperity for the rest of the country. I'm a firm believer in London doing well, but also the rest of the country doing well as well.
But what about that sense? You saw some of the clips we put together very quickly. I mean, certainly some people, editor of the Evening Standard among them, didn't feel like the focus was much on London. In fact, the focus might be shifting away. Would you accept that might be the case, and for political reasons the government may want to do that for a while?
Well, that's definitely been the perception amongst experts from when Theresa May first became Prime Minister. Theresa May and Philip Hammond are very different to David Cameron and George Osborne when it comes to devolution, generally speaking. I think we've made huge progress, the fact that we've got them this far, and I think councils from all sides deserve credit, MPs from all sides deserve credit, and I've tried to bring them together so we argue to government that actually, look, if you care about the Northern Powerhouse, if you care about Scotland and Wales, you've got to make sure London as well, we are the engine for the country. You know what? London, if you compare London to Wales, Scotland, Northern Ireland, those three countries combined have fewer people than London, yet we have less say over our destiny.
So are you making that case alongside the Labour leader Jeremy Corbyn? Is he making that case as well? Are you making it together?
Well, Team London, so MPs from all sides. Jeremy's a London MP, MPs from the Liberal Democrats, the Conservatives and the Labour, and Labour as well. Bob Neal and Steve Reid doing a great job in Parliament. London councils under Claire's leadership, 10 Tory councils, 21 Labour, 1 Lib Dem, the City London Corporation, businesses as well. And, Team London's got to persuade the government that actually it's in the country's interests for us to have more say over our destiny.
You've been asked about this before, and people have focused on this before. They focused on it during conference. How many times have you met Jeremy Corbyn since you became mayor?
I've seen him a couple of times. I think we're due to meet shortly as well. Jeremy's got a big job in making sure that we are an effective opposition, and also we are seen as an alternative government in waiting. My job as the mayor is different. There's an overlap, of course. My job is to make sure that I'm a champion, advocate and fighter for what I think is the greatest city in the world.
But he'd be seen as an asset and a help to you in trying to make this case to secure London's economic future post-Brexit.
Of course. I mean, Jeremy's a London MP, but also leader of the Labour Party, leader of Her Majesty's official opposition. It's really important that I, as the Mayor of London, speak to politicians of all sides. Of course, that includes my side as well.
You talked about the settlement, 3.15 billion over 6 years for housing. 2 billion of that, second half of it, you say you've kind of helped lobby for and negotiate. You've got that money. Are you going to build those 90,000 homes, 15,000 affordable homes every year? Can you guarantee at least that number now?
We want to make a start. It's going to be a hard slog. It's going to be a marathon, not a sprint. What we're doing now is getting together a team of experts, Homes for Londoners, with local authorities, housing associations, developers and experts. We're working on a new viability assessment we're going to publish shortly. We're recruiting for viability experts in City Hall. It's crucial that we start building homes that are genuinely affordable for Londoners. That includes the relaxation from the government that I welcome, in saying, firstly, they're not obsessed now by these homes costing up to £450,000. They agree with me that 80% of market value is not necessarily affordable for Londoners. So we can start building homes where you pay social rent, where you pay London living rent, a third of average local earnings, and also shared ownership. We've got to make sure the right sorts of homes are built for Londoners.
We've heard from Shelter that you have vowed to provide 50% of all the homes you deliver are affordable. Here you have the government giving you money specifically to build 15,000 affordable homes each year. So presumably you can fully sign up to that. You may not have signed up to targets in the past, but you can sign up to that one now, can't you?
Listen, the government and I have come up with a deal over the next few years where by 2021 we want to build 90,000 homes, and I intend to do that.
Any more than that, though? Was that it? Now they're just giving you the money for this? That's the ones you'll be content for?
And this is the crucial point. We mustn't allow this to be the height of our aspiration. We've got to make sure we start building genuinely affordable homes. And the starting point is this. Last year, the fewest number of affordable homes built under the previous mayor. Roughly speaking, 5,000. Look at the pipeline of homes coming through. Only 13% of homes being given permission to be built. And it takes a couple of years from a home being given permission to being built, being affordable. We've got a crisis here. And that's why I'm saying it's a marathon and not a sprint. It will take us some time. There are complex, challenging issues, and I'm determined to get on top of them. OK. Well, it's early days yet, but what can we glean so far about this mayoralty? Dan Friedman's been scaling the heights of the O2 building, or the Dome, as some of us still like to call it, to deliver this assessment.
Climbing to the summit of London's political scene has been hard slog for Sadiq Khan, who's famously from humble beginnings in Tooting. At times too, no doubt, it's been a lonely journey. Now he's reached the summit, no time to look around and observe the view, as nice as it may be. He made a lot of promises to Londoners to get him into City Hall. Now he's there 6 months in. Has he delivered on what he said he would?
His big four pledges were on housing, transport, crime and air quality. So as we reach the end of term, how's he done? His housing policy promise was to ensure that 50% of new homes are genuinely affordable.
The Mayor absolutely needs to deliver this target, because we're talking about over half of Londoners not being able to afford their rent, 88,000 children this Christmas being homeless. There are areas where we think the Mayor could be bolder, and certainly he will need to be if he's going to meet his very ambitious pledges during the campaign. So we'd be looking at a bit more flexibility on the Greenbelt potentially.
Perhaps the most eye-catching promise which he's already implemented was a pledge to freeze TfL transport fares for 4 years and introduce a 1-hour bus hopper ticket, meaning, in the Mayor's words, Londoners won't pay a penny more for their travel in 2020.
The so-called fares freeze is nothing of the sort. Over 1 million people won't benefit by that. He said that Londoners would not pay a penny more in fares in 2020, and it turns out that that's very far from the case. He's now hiding behind the fact that as the chairman of TfL, he can only set TfL fares, which is true, but he didn't make that distinction once in a 6-month mayoral campaign. And this wasn't some backroom policy, it was the marquee policy for that entire campaign, and he never made that distinction.
On crime, his promise to make London safer and tackle knife crime flies in the face of 11 fatal teenage stabbings this year so far.
He definitely understands the issues of knife crime in London and understands how they affect young Londoners and those who've been victims of knife crime. Where I think we could see some improvement is in terms of action. This has been a tragic year for Londoners in terms of knife crime. We really need to see some action.
And finally, on pollution, the Mayor's promise to restore London's air quality to legal and safe levels.
There's no sign of that being achieved before 2025 or even 2030, but to give him his due, the Mayor has got off to a good start, but I think he's just realising the scale of the problem that Boris left behind him, which is 3 times the legal limit in Putney High Street and Brixton Road. Diesel vehicles are responsible for over 90% of the most harmful exhaust emissions. There is only one thing which is going to make London comply with these standards, and that's to ban diesel vehicles from the most polluted places. And Sadiq is proposing to issue them with a modest charge, £11.50 a day, and that's just not good enough in his first term.
Sadiq, really good on incentivising affordable housing, but we'd like to see more on direct action to build homes. So I'm going to say a C.
Mayor Khan, for your first 6 months in charge, I will give you a C. You have room for improvement.
Mayor Khan, I know that you understand the issues involved in youth violence and I know that you care, but we need to see action now to stop more young people in London being murdered. For that, I give you a C.
Sadiq, you've got off to a good start, but please ban diesel vehicles. I'm giving you a B.
So not bad, but could do better, seems to be the verdict from our experts. Experts, eh? What do they know? Sadiq Khan's only been in the job 6 months. He's got 3.5 years left at City Hall. Plenty of time to make his mark and plenty to build on too.
Plenty of time. You accept C? Is that all right?
I think that's a very fair report, except for that Tory chap who, how he could keep a straight face is quite remarkable. But
Yeah,
it's going to take us.
Are you saying he wasn't a fair judge or a fair teacher to judge your work?
I think that's going to take us. It's going to take us a long time to address some of the challenges we face. And I think 6 months. We're starting the building blocks now to do a big job we've got to do. And all the points made by the three experts were good points.
Right. Well, let's just look at the. Let's start with the point that the other one made, that Gareth Bacon made, because Londoners won't pay a penny more in 2020
let me address that.
than they do today.
Let me address that.
Do you just regret phrasing it like that?
No, I don't. Look, I was quite clear in my manifesto, and the BBC came along when I unveiled this massive poster, which had a good-looking Labour candidate and a half-decent-looking Conservative candidate, and above me were the words "TfL fares frozen for the next 4 years."
Yeah, and you know that in your manifesto it did just say that, and it didn't specify, did it? Do you feel you should have made the distinction clear there?
No, because I was quite clear. TfL fares to be frozen over the next 4 years. I'll tell you this, in the last 8 years, they've gone up by more than 42%. We pay the most expensive fares in all of Europe. I've managed to freeze them over the next 4 years, TfL fares. And the point I make is, if I can do it, why can't the government? And that's why I'm disappointed by the autumn statement. But I didn't stop there. The previous mayor, who said it wasn't possible to have a 2-for-1 hopper. I've done it by September, and I'm going to have unlimited bus travel within an hour in 2018. But also, the previous mayor, on three occasions, promised a day for the night tube to begin, broke that and then gave up.
But
I've got the night tube running.
The important thing, though, those people that are still paying pay-as-you-go, but have a cap that's going to keep on going up, and those people paying travel cards, they are going to be paying more every year. Do you regret that they were given the impression by you that they weren't going to?
And I understand why they're unhappy that the government can't manage to do with the private train operating companies what I've done with TfL. My simple point.
Remember, you could have done, and remember, Transport for London, a few days after you became mayor, suggested, do you want to include those overground rail fares as well? You never went back to them on that, did you? You could have done it. You could have paid to the rail companies the money, and you could have frozen it for everyone.
That's just not the case. Over the last 8 years, they've gone up by more than 42%. We've frozen them for the next 4 years, TfL fares. And my point to the Conservative Assembly member is that he should be lobbying his government to say if the Mayor of London can freeze TfL fares, they went up 42% under Boris Johnson, who he supported, how come you as the government can't persuade the private train operating companies? By the way, these private companies make a huge amount of profit to freeze their fares, cancellations, delays, fares going up.
You know how it's supposed to cost at the moment £640 million, the cost of your fares freeze. Now we know what's happening to the economy and inflation is jumping up so high, it's going much closer to what Transport for London was saying would lead to it costing much more, £1.9 billion. I mean, do you accept now your estimate of how much this fares freeze will cost will inevitably now be much higher because of inflation?
No. I mean, and we already have published, the Transport for London Commissioner, how we're going to pay for the first 2 years of TfL freezes. When the Transport Business Plan is published shortly, we'll be set out how the final 2 years of the TfL fares freeze will be paid for. And TfL was good, but flabby, and that's why we've brought in efficiencies to merge engineering departments, to make sure we bid for work overseas and get people to pay for it, to make sure we haven't got people earning huge salaries which aren't justifiable, to make sure we reduce the number of consultants, but also we would encourage more people to use public transport. We're doing that.
Can I ask you about policing? We heard about crime there, a spike in knife crime, but let's broaden this. What do you say about the Metropolitan Police after we've had Operation Midland, which has been the cause of some controversy? We've had the conviction of a paedophile and issues raised about the policing in East London there. We've had a report just on Friday from Her Majesty's Inspectorate about child protection safeguarding. One of the worst reports ever produced. Is the Met in crisis?
Well, one of the things that does worry me as the Mayor is the issue of security and safety for Londoners. I want to start by saying each day we should recognise that tens of thousands of police officers go to work and risk their lives to keep us safe. So one of the first things I did was to order a review into whether we're safe in relation to a terror incident, which is very important.
But can we focus on this whole issue?
But it's linked, because obviously if you're the Met Police Commissioner, if you're a police officer, you're responsible for not simply preventing terrorist attacks, but also ensuring that children are safe, victims are safe, people aren't victims of knife crime, and all the other things you talked about. We have gone through a difficult time in relation to the Henriquez report, which uncovered failings in the Met Police Service. The verdict last week in relation to the conviction, and also, of course, the HMIC report on Friday.
So is there a big need to restore confidence here, and how are you going to do that?
Well, this is one of the reasons why I've already spoken to the Home Secretary. My Deputy Mayor for Police has spoken to the Policing Minister, Brandon Lewis. We've published an action plan to address the deficiencies identified by HMIC. We're addressing the issues raised by Henriquez, and we'll see what the recommendations are made in relation to the Port verdict last week. Look, I'm quite clear. The easiest thing for me to do is to blame the previous mayor, blame the previous deputy mayor and just forget about it. But I'm determined to have an action plan that addresses the failings identified. And that's why it's important that the Home Secretary and I appoint a new commissioner to begin in March, hopefully, who will understand the challenges of being the Met Police Commissioner, but also recognises what a privilege it is to be the commissioner of the best police service in the world, leading police officers who work their socks off every day of the week.
Air quality, ban diesel cars, so that's the answer.
Well, thanks for the B, by the way, from Simon. But look, one of the things we've got to recognise is, look, I'm trying to make sure the air in London isn't a killer anymore, doesn't make you sick and isn't illegal, as it is at the moment. 9,400 people die each year because of air quality, children's lungs underdeveloped, and the UK Supreme Court has held their air is unlawful. That's why I've got bold and ambitious plans that are the envy of cities around the world in relation to the ultra-low emission zone, bringing it in a year early, widening it to go up to the north and south circular. From next year, the most polluting vehicle paying an extra £10 on the congestion charge, only buying electric, hybrid or hydrogen buses from 2018. But I can't do it by myself. And the government needs to help me in relation to either a national diesel scrappage scheme and or help in relation to vehicle excise duty. We need to make sure the government does much more in relation to the judgment from the courts. They've got to pull their weight.
You've got 25 seconds, 30 seconds to tell us in a year's time, what will have mattered that you will have achieved?
We'll have started progress in relation to building genuinely affordable homes, really important. I would hope by next year the budget would have been even more generous in relation to devolution. As I said, first steps in the autumn statement, we want more devolution next year, but also Brexit. We've got to make sure that London doesn't lose out when, the Article 50 notice is served, because, my 3 words that I've said since Brexit is London is open. We've got to make sure it is.
Sadiq Khan, thanks very much indeed.
I've been getting